This conference will now be recorded.
Testing one. One, two, check, test. You light up my life. Test. Oh my goodness. Oh, hey, Alan, you ready? Or you got it?
Mr. Jewett, how are you? Good. Well, y'all folks ready? I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors to order. As always, let's start with a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. Need to add a couple items to the consent agenda. It'll be number 3 through 8. And majority of these are grants and pass-throughs and reimbursements. Extension office, $2,500 for paid interns. Fire department grant, EMS donation, sheriff grant, Commonwealth's attorney appropriation, and then the closing of the micro enterprise fund with a value of $32,988.37 plus interest. And that'll be items 3 through 8 in consent. Anybody else have anything we need to add to the agenda this evening? It's a pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda as amended.
A second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. As always, let's start with public comment. Public comment. Public comment. Yes, sir. Please go to the podium.
Hi there. Thank you all for having me here today. My name is Felix Shapiro. I am a real estate developer and public servant out of Richmond, and am coming before you to express my enthusiastic interest in joining the broader Madison County business community, and in particular in the redevelopment of the Kriglersville Elementary School site. I certainly don't intend to take much of your time this afternoon, but welcome any questions, comments, or anything else. Thank you very much. Wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Shapiro. Jonathan, I know you've talked to Mr. Shapiro. I've talked to Mr. Shapiro. You want to follow up with him and see if we can get a plan and get him on an agenda?
Yes, I'd like to, if it's okay with the board. I have a proposal somewhat from Mr. Shapiro at this time. Certainly we can touch base this week, and if it's okay, we'll bring it back on the 25th. There may be one other proposal out there, so I would look to collectively bring that together. It's possible there may be other properties too. One of the properties I was looking at is not on here for tonight, but is Thrift Road. Its purpose, since you've relocated staff to this building, so certainly we can bring it back on the 25th.
That worked for everybody. Thank you, Mr. Shapiro. Other public comment. Other public comment.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I don't really understand. I don't really understand why you all approved that apartment complex that's going to be built. I don't have a good feeling about somebody that comes in here and says, well, these will only be 1 bedroom, but there'll be an extra room without a closet. So it's not going to be a 2-bedroom apartment, is it? So who are the people moving into these apartments? And everybody's excited about tax revenue. Well, when you start getting a bunch of people in there with children and you have to educate them, what is that? 15 grand a year minimum? I don't need it.
Virtual and recording.
What I'm trying to say is, I just don't understand why you think you will make up enough revenue to offset the cost of educating children, possible police, that kind of thing. All right?
Thank you, Joe May.
Yep.
Other public comment. Other public comment. All right, moving along. We do have a consent agenda. We have minutes from 12/14, and then we have the school supplemental appropriation from ESSER. I believe it's ESSER. Is it 2 or ESSER 2 for $1 million? And then the items originally stated 3 through 8. Questions, thoughts? What do you all want to do on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, special appearances. We don't have any constitutional officers. Brian? Howdy. What's going on in the Commissioner of Revenue's office? Yeah, pass around the microphone, yes. Please.
So good afternoon. Yes, we have a new employee. Ms. Rebecca Lowe is our new deputy. And she's here today with us. So I just brought her in to say hi and enjoy the meeting. So we're currently, we got an appraiser going around picking up new construction that was built during 2021 for the 22 tax year. So if anybody sees him in and around the county, that's what he's doing. And we, of course, have our new software rollout that we had training last week that went well. You know, a few things we're looking back into. Stephanie's office is in there this week training with them. And that's about it. A whole lot of catch up that we're trying to play as well. So,
Miss Murray is closed, what, the 11th through the 14th?
no, this week. She's
What date?
from today till.
It's 11th through the 14th.
Sorry.
And technically Monday's a
I'm
holiday.
behind here,
Confused.
Clay.
All right.
I don't even know what week it is.
All right. Well, questions for Brian? Welcome, Mr. Slow. Glad you're on the team, I guess.
There is at least one person that was interested in local tax revenue. So.
Oh, yeah. You must be hard up for entertainment coming here. Glad to have you. Mooney, how's facilities?
We're having a few problems with the courthouse, the chiller. We got a bunch of holes in it that we're trying to repair, but if not, we might have to replace some parts. So I'm getting a quote from Riddleberger on that. Plan to take Christmas decorations down this week, get everything tied up for that, and then clean up from the storm. Other than that, everything's going well.
Good. Questions about facilities? Thank you, Mooney. Ms. Eames?
Hi. On December 28th, the Supreme Court finalized the maps that they were in the process of redrawing for the redistricting that needs to happen. We've changed numbers basically in all the districts. So for the congressional district, we'll be in the 5th instead of the 7th. Oh, I'm sorry, opposite, the 7th instead of the 5th. Reading it backwards. For the Senate, instead of the 24th, will now be in the 28th, and for the House, instead of the 30th, will be in the 62nd. A lot of the localities around us who we're with have changed for that, but there won't be any splits or anything that will affect Madison County. As far as numbers, will stay whole for all of it. I don't have any updates at this point as of what our next step is for getting this approved or where we go next as far as the Department of Elections. So I'll just keep you guys posted as I've got updates on that. Yes, I'm sorry. For the Senate and for the House of Delegates, we are probably going to lose Nick Freitas and Emmett Hanger, who are currently in those positions. And as of right now, they'll stay until we do some type of election to reset that or to correct those things. And then Bob Good's up for election the end of this year anyway.
Questions for Lauren? Thank you, Lauren. Gerald?
Spring sports registrations will be open up on January 15th. We have 386 registrations for youth winter sports and 54 for women's volleyball. We are also working on an event schedule for 2022. So far, we have. We're good. That's fine. I don't care. So far, we have 20 events scheduled. We're also doing our first spring break camp for kids in April. They'll be run just like our summer camp. And we'll soon be working on getting ready 25 acres of sports fields for spring sports that also include all high school athletic fields. And so far, we have had close to $20,000 donated for the roller hockey rink location to Hoover Ridge.
That is great. Questions for Jerry at Parks and Rec? All right, Ms. Barry.
Good afternoon. We are very busy. As Lita will probably tell you, we didn't have our term day last Monday, so tomorrow's docket is something special. I guess is the polite way to say that. We are gearing up for a bunch of jury trials in a row, as I'd mentioned a couple years ago with the change in the law. We anticipated a lot more defendants electing jury trials, and that is certainly something that we're seeing in Madison. We're still better off than some jurisdictions. Louisa's having criminal jury trials on Saturdays, so we're not there. So there's at least that to be thankful for. But we are quite busy, got a lot going on. The General Assembly, as you know, kicks off tomorrow. There are, as always, many interesting bills that will, I'm sure, not improve our lives before the General Assembly. So hopefully wisdom will prevail there. So I'll be going to Richmond a little bit back and forth, and we'll see how things go.
So why are people want jury?
Joe, how much time do you have? So there, so in Virginia, we have the sentencing guidelines that judges use once someone is convicted. And so it used to be that if you were if you chose to be tried by a jury, you were sentenced by a jury. And the jury didn't have access to the sentencing guidelines because the jury can't suspend an active portion of the sentence. If you chose to be tried by a judge, you would be sentenced by a judge, and the judge would have the guidelines. The big problem was that if you were talking about distribution of Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 drugs like heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine, you'd never been convicted of a serious crime before, your guidelines would have a recommended active period of incarceration of 1 year and 1 month. A jury would start at 5 years. So that's why they didn't. So now everyone gets sentenced under the guidelines. So the judge will start with 1 year and 1 month.
And what percent of your convictions are based on negotiated pleas?
Almost all of them, because the guidelines are not great.
All right. Other questions, Miss Barry? Thank you, Miss Barry.
Mr. McDowell, you're always welcome to come talk to me.
Lita?
So I did up our totals for December, and we sent to the state $70,129.96, and we sent to the county $40,666. For December, we did 207 land instruments and 42 judgments. We only did 2 marriage licenses, though. But for the year, I went ahead and did the whole year for 2021, and we sent to the state $1,103,000. We sent to the county $454,000, and I did reimburse the county for $11,000 for my part-time employee, and we did 2,636 land instruments, which was a couple hundred more than what we had done before. We did 400 concealed handgun permits, which I knew was going to be up. I did get in December, I got notification from the Library of Virginia that we got another grant. So we are getting 8 books taken care of for $17,935. Just to let the board know, I don't know that this would ever come up, but I don't want it to come up. Myself and my staff each went over to Orange to work about 7 days. But we did take an oath over there. So if you went through the Orange books, you're going to see where the clerk of Madison County took an oath in Orange County simply because they had COVID. They had lost almost all of their employees, and we tried to help with court. The clerk of Madison County is not moving to Orange County. I'm just letting you know. But you will see an oath that I did take to Orange County simply because of what I did that day. Needed to have an oath taken. Same with my employees. I explained that, I think, to Jonathan, but somebody made a comment in my office the other day of why did they see an oath for me in Orange County? That's why.
But you still like it here.
I still love it here.
All right. We're with you. All right. Question, Ms. Lauck? Michelle?
Good afternoon. The finance department, we have gotten budgets out to all the department heads, so we're expecting those back in and getting ready to start up with budget works for fiscal year 23. We continue with ERP work meetings this week. I've already been in one meeting this week, and I have another one Friday and another one coming up Tuesday. Grants, I've been working with Jennifer in Victim Witness, and we just got a grant in today for the sheriff's office. I believe it's for $1,021 that just got in. And then we're getting ready to work on getting 1099s rolled out for all the vendors and different things. So we'll continue to work in finance.
Questions for Michelle? Thank you. Bob, you have things to add?
Good afternoon. Michelle, I think, summarized the finance department pretty well. I'll just add in also W-2s as well as 1099s. So, yeah, we're in the middle of the year, of the fiscal year. So we'll be putting together some detailed information about FY22 for the board. Hopefully, I think it's for the next board meeting on the 25th. So we'll be working on that. And then, as Michelle said, yeah, we're working on the FY23 budget. And that process will be starting internally on the 3rd. And then we'll be coming to the board, I think, on the 10th with those sessions on Thursday. As far as the ERP, I think everything's going pretty well. We have gotten to a point where we've been in a pause period for Tyler. And we're getting to the point where I believe the team feels like we are about ready to start back with the quote training configuration. So that's going to be gearing up again. Avinity is being worked on right now. I think, of course, Brian's here, but Stephanie is probably heavily involved in that this week. So anyway, I think everything's going well overall.
Questions for Bobby? Livingston, how are we doing in the tech world?
Keeping it steady. It's like constant tickets all day long. It's been very, very busy. RDA server's a little unstable. Fortunately, we've got a clone now. I'm going to try to get the RDA people to get in here and jump on there and see if we can somehow set that up and have a plan in the event that that old server dies, because we do not have coverage for it. So anyway, that's been a big thing this week, trying to shore that up once I found that out. We did set up a whole bunch of equipment down in 410 building for the Avinity folks, check card readers, printers, handheld scanners, computers, all of it. And Stephanie and them are down there right now in their second day of training, all with Avinity folks, which is going pretty good so far. I don't think there's been any failures of any of the IT part of it. Miss Lita, I got a chance to help her out this week over there with her little Linux server that she's running for the state Supreme Court, and just busy. Plenty of tickets.
Good. Anything for Livingston? That's to Pete. Would you, Livingston?
Yes, sir.
Pete, how's the planning commission doing?
Well, we're not working on event ordinances. Well, we're working on different things that y'all appoint or ask us to work on, and I'm here to represent the planning commission, report back to them what the meeting is. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Noah?
Good afternoon. Record number of calls, December 170, 10 minutes for a response time average. And Gavin pointed out to me from Monday of last week till Monday today, or yesterday, I guess, 66 calls with the winter weather and so forth. So It's been steady. Still working to fill our open full-time medic position. We did hire 2 part-time folks who are in orientation, trying to convince them to come full-time. And AEDs, they're going to start installing them tomorrow. 10 arrived, so they'll be deployed out into the Madison community, and we received everything from MCRS that we needed to.
What's our total on AEDs to this point?
We've received 10, 17 are coming, and they'll be deployed with the sheriff's office.
Good. Is the only position you're looking for at this point a medic?
Correct.
Good. Well, good. Other questions for Noah? All right, Gavin.
Good afternoon, everyone. So not a lot to report. We're still meeting with all the emergency management stakeholders in the county. We've got a lot of those meetings done. We got a little off track last week. You might have heard we had some weather in the county, a few power failures here and there. We are going to be meeting with VDEM tomorrow to set up our remaining emergency management deputies with the web EOC. And so we meet a couple hours on that tomorrow. Hope to get the LEPC meetings back up and running in February, start getting everybody back together on that. I'm not going to try to recognize everybody, but we just had an outstanding response last week with everybody in this county. Once again, I'm just absolutely humbled with how our county comes together in the midst of an emergency. I did want to recognize, though, social services for the fantastic job that they did with the shelter, and just everybody, every agency. I'm trying to think that's about it at this point. I would also like to just point out that REC did a wonderful job in our county, and as of a few hours before we got here, we are at 100% back online in the county. So good job for REC on that.
Thank you, Gavin. Brian?
Okay, right. Still been working on radios moving forward. The Hoover Ridge site final CDs have been completed. Building permit has been submitted. Beautiful run. And Blakey Ridge, same story. The building at those 2 locations are minimal. We're only looking at very, very brief what we need to do there. Hughes River, zoning drawings have been completed and zoning package has been submitted to Ligon. We're trying to get into the workshop this month and the first meeting of the Planning Commission in February to get those on the table. AFG grant was submitted on December 15th, 2 days ahead of the 17th deadline. We got feedback last time that our call volume and the age of our equipment was our downfall. So we really put forth a lot of information on what our call types are, our interoperability issues, so on and so forth, to try to get that grant. That grant is worth roughly $600K for Madison if we're successful with it. Next generation 911, our Vesta upgrade is set to be deployed on the 17th. That will make us next gen ready, and we are set to deploy on that for mid-April. So beyond that, I'm still 2 dispatchers short. Key stats for last year. Last month, we answered 3,895 phone calls, 1,184 calls for service. 2021, 46,607 phone calls, and a total of 14,390 calls of service came through dispatch.
Well, thank you. Try to stay busy. Tracy?
There is a VATI grant call tomorrow that I know Mr. Weekly and I will both be on. We've got all kinds of responses. Thanks to everybody that helped with the shelter, and especially the one I saw right before I left said, thanks for the heat, the charging station, the food. And I said, food? Troy must have cooked. I didn't know there was food. So they were very appreciative. Of course, Madison's going to have food, you people. We have submitted our Arpa Plan, which is the tourism funding, for December 21st. It still says pending. It was just to get our plan in there before the end of the year so we get half of the funds up front for that. We had about 5,000 website visitors in December. Preparing all of our events. We're hoping to relaunch the Business Expo, working on Taste the Mountains, updating the brochure. So anybody has changes or additions or deletions to the brochure, please let us know. Closer to announcing a couple of projects, still waiting on the state to kind of finalize a couple of projects as well. And one property that I submitted for potential business to the state actually found out today. Sorry, Jonathan, I have not let you know this yet. DIY, the countertop place and cabinet place right across from Shelby. They have actually expanded. They've had the countertops outside where the Lester Group's property is. They've actually taken over the inside as well. So that's going to be 16,500 square feet of countertop showroom. So that's a rather large expansion. They've signed a 3-year lease. So that was actually good news. The Central Virginia Small Business Development Center's report is on here as well. They still have some free websites for anyone who needs them. Mad Wine Tour plans to launch soon on Thursdays, and that's between Revelation, Blue Quartz, and Prince Michelle. We currently still have 3 tenants at the visitor center upstairs. I do have one more that's interested, and that would just bring us to a total of 7,200, which will most likely take care of our small business development center. And they've shown how much they've grown and how many more businesses they've helped. They also helped with our Business Cares grants in 2020 as well, and kept one business from shutting their doors last year. So as always, many events listed on madisonva.com. That is about it.
I got.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Tracy, the Small Business Development Center comes before this body every year.
They just started.
For funding, huh?
They just started coming.
Yeah, a couple
last
years
year-
ago.
Yeah, $500 for last year.
Right.
Talked them down from 9,000.
Right. So my question is, I mean, I read the report and they told us last year what their ask is 57.5 cents per capita, which for us is about $7,700. But anyhow, we did not fund them. We funded them $500 last year or something. But I read this and I see all of what they do. Is there a way that you could get some testimony from some folks in Madison that have been
Easily.
aided by them for us to review during budget time?
I mean, even the 16 businesses that got those grants,
Yeah.
these people handheld them through that entire process.
Yeah, that's what this says.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
All of
I'd like
them.
to hear what.
Yeah, and I hesitate to say yes to all of them because the
Sure.
one that almost shut their doors, I don't know if they want to say
No,
that
no, no,
publicly.
that's fine.
But yeah,
No,
but
you
yes,
know,
we can easily get that.
To get a flavor. And as far as the Revelations aphid performance agreement, so whose court is that in right now?
It's a state.
The state. Okay. All right. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions for Tracy? All right, thank you, Tracy. Valerie, I think you're last. Get you a microphone.
I'm excited to report that the Department of Social Services survived providing shelter to county residents from last Tuesday at noon until 3 o'clock yesterday. So what that looks like is 24-hour staffing of at least 2 DSS employees for all 144 hours. Sometimes we needed as many as 6 people there to be handling both answering the phone as well as providing meals, as well as guiding folks to the back of the fire department to fill water jugs and such, helping folks get a hot shower, and more importantly, just assessing what their needs were currently and after the power came back on. I cannot commend the staff of social services enough. They left their own dark and cold homes to take care of everybody else with a good attitude, with a smile. I wish I could give you a report of all the numbers and how many people served. And I honestly haven't had a chance to look at the paperwork yet. But again, it was an incredibly successful venture that my staff actually enjoyed. Seeing the immediate impact of the work they do. Sometimes we don't get that. If there was any concern I have in jest, it's that we provided too positive a shelter that folks were really sad to leave. I'm really just kidding. But again, a real community was formed within the folks there. Just a little example, a lady heard another of the shelter residents ask for toast one morning. We didn't have a toaster. When she went for the 5th time to see if her power was back on, she brought her own toaster back. The investment from this community, from the Salvation Army, going shopping for us, from another county department head saying, I'm on my way to Charlottesville. Can I pick anything up from Sam's? As much as the Department of Social Services led the shelter, it truly was a community taking care of our community. I can't tell you the number of folks that just dropped by and said, I have these vegetables that are thawing. Can you use them at the shelter? So again, thank you to the
Questions for Valerie? Valerie, thank you. And welcome back, Gracie. We're glad to have you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, because I know you're getting ready to close up, I
Yeah.
too want to personally thank this team. Worked round clock. Anything from firewood to somewhere out starting generators for folks. It's just, the list could go on and on. We have great people. I know we know that, but it just reassures those who may not have used those services before. I know Valerie was seeing all kinds of demographics out there. So we've learned a lot through it. We'll have a recap from the stakeholders who are involved, but just my hat's off to all those folks. Gavin did a lot of power calls, Brian as well, Valerie and her team. It's just great to know we've got the right people in place, and we're blessed by that. So thank you to everyone involved.
Thank you, John. All right. I think we got everybody. We have no old business. Let's go to new business, the budget calendar. Miss Weekly?
Yes, sir. So in front of you is what I have suggested for a budget calendar. I didn't fill in the blanks, if you will, as far as who all you will be seeing on those dates. We look to kick off the budget work session on February the 10th, following the same model you've done in years past. And I've spoke to each one of you as far as do Thursdays continuously work 2 to 6 p.m. So this calendar reflects starting on February the 10th, going through every Thursday through March 17th, 2 to 6 p.m. here at the auditorium. Anticipating a public hearing on April 6th. That is the first Wednesday. I do realize that's generally your joint planning commission meeting, so we hope to have a light agenda, but it's assuming a 7:30 public hearing time, and with you all setting the tax rate and adopting the budget on April the 12th. So that is your budget calendar, sir, you have before you.
What's the 21st, Jonathan? Is that when the schools do their public hearing?
The 21st.
21st holiday. Awesome. Thank you. What day is it? Oh, good one. All right. When does the school? Do you remember, Cardi? They mentioned it at their last meeting.
Sometimes we would have them in March because they were getting their numbers later. And I know in the past you've asked, hey, sometimes that's okay, so you have firmer numbers. We have not confirmed dates yet. We're in that process of, hey, let's get your time slot set up. So I do not have a budget commitment date from Ms. Graham at this time.
No. And Dustin, you said you want to participate virtually, what, 17th?
Yes, sir.
All right. There's no reason why that can't happen, is there? Sean Gregg? Yeah, there you go. I resent your hair coming back so fast. All right. Everybody okay? Well, yeah, no, I'm working on things. Everybody okay with this budget calendar? Seems like it's what we are. We're all kind of looking forward to Jonathan, Michelle, and Bobby kind of curtailing the way we do this and maybe making it a little bit easier and less painful, and see how the whole process goes.
And the plan is, it's not on, but the plan is to tackle CIP in the budget at the same time. To me, they go hand in hand. I believe you did that last year, so that will be the plan this year.
Everybody good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's exciting.
So I believe just Mr. Gregg, I believe if they are fine with the calendar, move to approve the calendar.
What y'all want to do?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the Madison County FY23 budget calendar.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Mr. Gregg did a presentation for the for grandfathering, the generalized term to the Planning Commission in one of their workshops. It was exceptional. He's assured me that he's forgotten everything he said there. Look forward to hearing it. Greg, please.
And the idea, particularly now that we have 2 new members of the Board of Supervisors, and congratulations, the idea is to make sure that everybody understands what the nomenclature is. I prepared a memorandum several years ago, directed to the Madison County Planning Commission, and I updated my presentation to them several weeks ago. The issue in terms of what grandfathering is, what most people mean by grandfathering is a non-conforming use. In other words, the property has been used, or a piece of property has been used for a particular purpose. The legislation has changed, the ordinances have changed. Then the question becomes, can the person who was using the property previously continue in that use? And the rules on it, and again, it's called non-conforming use in the Commonwealth of Virginia for reasons that escape me. But there are a couple of things that have to be done to do it. And you've got to be careful about, what you've actually done. For example, if you've been running basically a local dumping facility, you can probably continue to do that depending on whether, the law has changed. If you expand the scope of what you have done, then you will find that, you've expanded it to the point that you really are no longer in conformance with the existing zoning. A lot of this is the principle that, we do believe in property rights, but at the same time, we believe in the right of government to make changes to these things and to continue to regulate as is necessary. Non-conforming uses, because they're non-conforming and because you do look for conformity, a non-conforming use that has not been used for 2 years is no longer a non-conforming use. In other words, you've got to keep using it for whatever the non-conforming use was. There's a difference between non-conforming uses and vested rights. And this is where most people, I think, get a little confused. And candidly, at just about every local government conference I have attended, there's been a 2-hour presentation on grandfathering, non-conforming uses, and vested rights. And the reason for that is because the attorneys don't know what they're talking about either. And some of it is, occasionally the Supreme Court gives us rules that make things even more confusing. One of the things I'll talk about in a few minutes is a case from 1992 that went to the Virginia Supreme Court, where Madison County was one of the parties. And it's constant. If you look at what the Supreme Court docket is on a year-to-year basis, you'll see that there are a number of cases involving these issues. So it's kind of a slippery concept. With regard to what vested rights are and what vested right uses are, the landowner has to do a couple of things. First, there has to be an affirmative government act. The approval of a special use permit, the approval of a building permit, something like that. And here's where the rub is typically for most people, is there actually has to be reliance on it. If you get a building permit and you don't build, at some point it expires. If you build what is required and then, the zoning laws change or something changes in the statute that makes that building illegal, if you have taken an act, just a personal government act, not just a general citizen, but if you've taken a personal government act in reliance on that, in other words, I've gotten my building permit, I've hired a contractor, I bought building materials. In that case, then your rights to use that property are in fact vested. People get confused on this sometimes because they think general behavior is enough to do it. And it really isn't. And I think one of the best analogies for that is, I know people who exceed the speed limit. If they've been exceeding the speed limit and the speed limit is then lowered, it doesn't mean they get to play by the old rules. In other words, as soon as it goes down, because there's no affirmative act to rely on it. Now, I suppose if an attorney wanted to go to jail for the weekend, he could say, well, Judge, my client relied on the speed limit being 200 miles an hour, so he put a souped up engine in his car and he has the absolute right to do it. Completely ridiculous. We don't expect government to do that. And in the field of, uses of property, it can't be a hypothetical use. It can't be a general use. It has to be something that is tangible and has actually happened. When you get cases, and you will get cases where these issues are mentioned, and you'll have people standing at this podium saying, well, my rights are grandfathered. I think it's important that, and when we have these things come up, we will of course talk about it. in terms of what needs to be done and what the nature of the use is. I just want to alert the board as to what those things are and what the difference is. And finally, and again, I'm roughly tracking the memorandum that is in your materials and is also posted online, is, what is grandfathering? And it had been difficult for me to talk about grandfathering until, lo and behold, at the last Planning Commission meeting, we had a conversation about some of the rules with regard to how, driveway entrances on Route 29. And if you see in the materials that I provided you this afternoon, and there are at least 3 other sections where this particular grandfathering occurred, in section 5-10-2, we have a perfect example of grandfathering. Grandfathering is a situation where the rules have changed, but the ordinance has been modified. In other words, in this particular case, the Board of Supervisors has said, okay, these were the old rules. We know people were following the old rules, and we're going to write a provision into the ordinance to protect them. This particular ordinance relates to driveways on Route 29. And you will see, and I'm again happy to share this with the media, anybody who wants it. It's kind of like watching paint dry, truth be known. But in any event, anybody who is interested in this will see that the statute says, well, wait a minute, you can only have a driveway every 900 feet. But the statute, or the ordinance, whenever it was passed, says each parcel of land that fronts on US 29 and is recorded in the clerk's office of the Circuit Court of Madison County prior to June 20, 1990, shall be permitted to have at least one such entrance on Route 29. The significance of that, and the reason this is grandfathering, is the ordinance itself sets forth the terms of the grandfathering provision. So for grandfathering, you don't talk to what people in the neighborhood have always thought the law was. What you do is you look at the ordinance itself, based on what the ordinance shows, then you are able to make that determination. Again, you're going to have, and over the Mr. Dawson, Mr. Jewett, you're going to have these cases come up. There's always going to be confusion. If you've got a question or you're not sure, because and so much of it is because everything kind of blends into, because uses are not as clearly defined as we might want them to be. And please call me. The case Parker v. County of Madison, I just introduced it for basically local color, but it also has a very important provision. And that is the fact that just because that's the way we've always done it, doesn't mean it's the law. If the ordinance does not provide for it, we are not allowed to do it. And that is essentially what this case was about. This had to do with a subdivision that was passed. It was on the books. Everybody knew it was coming. There's no question. And nobody was trying to get away with anything. But what happened is everybody kind of played loosely with it, thinking, well, we can take care of it. It has been passed. Well, the particular subdivision was challenged, and the Supreme Court reversed the Madison County government's approval of that subdivision on the basis that it did not comply with the ordinance at the time. And there is language in the opinion. This is one disadvantage of no longer wearing bifocals. Absent express authorization written into an ordinance, a governing body has no authority to recognize an unwritten practice that is inconsistent with the existing law. So we just need to be careful. Anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, informally, if anybody has any questions about these issues, I'm not going to guarantee I can answer them tonight, but when it comes up, just give me a call.
Questions, Mr. Gregg? Mr. Gregg, thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.
Sure.
Thank you, pardon. Yes, ma'am.
All right. It's good to hear about things that come up just all the time. I think that kind of covered a lot of that. Mr. Weekly, tell us about ambulance medical billing service agreement.
So actually, Mr. Chairman, I've asked Mr. Hillstrom to be here tonight. Previously, ambulance medical billing, depending on who was running the call, it would be with the Volunteer Rescue Squad or EMS. So I've asked Noah to come here this evening to speak on the agreement.
Noah?
Mr. Hilstrom?
Sure. Well, this will be pretty quick. So the reason for the change, so I guess a little backstory. Ambulance medical billing is the vendor, and a portion of revenue generated from EMS calls goes back to the billing company. Our current rate is 9.35%. The state of Virginia recently purchased our patient care software program called ESO. And part of the percentage we were paying to AMB was for that program. And we're saving money. So the percentage change is 9.35 to 7.5 because Virginia is paying for it. And the reason we have to renew the contract to adjust for that. There's also language, the original contract had Madison County, Virginia, and it's been updated to reflect Madison County Board of Supervisors, which is more accurate for the invoices we receive.
And at this point, we're receiving 100% of those funds since we're not split anymore.
That's correct.
Questions for Noah on this?
I got a few, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
go
I'll start. So AMB is the company that's doing this now.
Correct.
Right? And they have been for how long? It's been a number of years.
Many years. I think 2007, roughly.
Yeah.
I'd have
So
to go back and look,
so
but
we're
around-
familiar with them. I mean, that I was getting to, did this need to be competed? I mean, are there other companies doing this? So you looked around.
I didn't, and the reason is they, again, with the charting software ESO, also our CAD vendor has linkability. There's probably a better term, but it's the
So it's a
best
best
available.
value situation
Yes, sir.
here.
Yeah.
Huh? Okay, so obviously the staff is comfortable with this. Let's see. Yes. Okay, so you got a situation where so I take a van ride to Charlottesville and it's I don't know, it's $1,000 or whatever, but then Medicare pays half of it, so they would only collect the 7.5% on the $500. So the van ride was $1,000. Medicare sends the county 500, and then A and B deals with the other 500. How does that work, Noah?
Yeah, so each month we'll get an invoice for a total number of revenue generated for that month. So let's call it $20,000.
All right.
Then they do a multiplier of 9.35%. On average, we're running about $2,700 a month that we're paying back to A and B for that. I do have 2021 numbers. I reached out to them just each year. I like to see how we're doing. So the total charges were $810,288. And then due to various reasons of Medicare, Medicaid, bad debt, bankruptcy, etc., the adjusted charges were $360,941, which is the allowable charges, and we've recuperated $305,350. So it's a 97% recovery rate, which is really good for that.
I just help. When Medicare pays a portion of the bill, they send that money directly to the county?
I don't want to answer wrong. I don't know.
Who in the county administers this on our end? It does all this paperwork and dealing with it.
So AMB does that for the county as the contractor.
But your shop sends them the reports of your runs and how much those costs were.
Yep. So AMB actually has access to our charting program ESO.
Oh.
So they actually internally run all those reports. That's why I kind of have a question mark for you, because they're doing all of that.
Okay.
Each month We do have a monthly touch base call, call report. But
Okay, so our finance department and treasury, they're not involved in this.
correct. They're of course very welcome to be involved. Yeah. Right.
Well, other than that. Let's see. I see the client shall pay the invoice upon receipt. I mean, that best business practice is always net 30. That's down there on page, well, it's on 40, Jonathan, as far as it gives us 30 days. All right.
And I think procurement law, I don't put Bobby on the spot, but I think you have like 30 or 45 days, but it's generally a net 30. So they do give you 30 days on page 46.
Yeah. All right, I got one more question, Mr. Chairman, and then I'll shut up. So does A&B have the discretion to set up payment plans with self-pay patients?
To my knowledge, yes.
They do.
Yeah. And as a
Okay, so-
reminder for the group, so Madison County residents, there's no balance billing. So if you're a Madison resident,
Mhm.
you take the van ride to $1,000.
Mhm. And if A&B were to say, okay, sure, Cardi, we'll give you 10 years to pay this back. Well, that's not acceptable to me. If it was me paying, it would be acceptable, but to the county, it's not acceptable.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
I think there's restrictions. I say restrictions is probably a better term, but of income qualifications for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to reach out to A&B to give you exact numbers.
And some probably maximum limits on how long they would extend this payment plan or whatever. Okay, I was curious. They do address self-pay patients in here. That's all I got.
All right. Other questions for Noah on this? And this is just a couple minor adjustments, but just a continuation of services already being rendered.
And the percentage going down
Yeah,
in our
exactly.
favor, so.
Down to 7.5. What would y'all like to do?
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the A&B service agreement.
Second.
All right. Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right.
What's this other?
Thank you, Noah.
What's this other one?
Public comments next.
Oh, no, I guess that's the only spot, isn't it? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. There's two places for signatures in here. I thought, Jonathan?
Should be just for the board.
Right at the end. Okay, that's it. That was
All
it.
right.
Sorry.
Very good. Any other new business we need to talk about? All right. Now to public comment. Mr.
Okay,
May.
my question is, let's say it's $1,000 bill, and Medicare pays $500. And then does A&B, I guess it is, do they go after your supplemental? I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
And then if they don't, then let's say somebody like Joe May, am I gonna be billed for the additional 500? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's always been the policy.
The policy's always been soft billing, is the term that's always been used. And the whole idea is that what people pay should not be an obstacle for getting medical coverage that they need. And as part of Madison County, I think that's a pretty good philosophy. Other public comment. Mr. McDowell, please.
First, I'd like to welcome two new members of the board. My comment deals with upcoming budget season. By background, I noticed, there was a lot of change last year with EMS, CARES money, with dissolution of the rescue squad and so on. A lot of big changes. But I see that EMS and the sheriff's department have many vehicles. Some of these are very expensive. I would like to recommend that if you're not already doing it during budget considerations, you establish an object code that sets forth a contribution to a capital reserve fund to amortize the value of these vehicles so that when they reach their lifespan, they can be replaced without an undue financial burden on the county.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Nick. Yeah.
We'll have a capital asset replacement plan within your CIP that'll assist to what Mr. McDowell was talking about.
I think Bobby brought that up yesterday morning in their meeting. Did you not?
Yeah, so.
Setting up a fund line for it.
Sure.
Yeah. Grab a mic if you would, Bobby.
Mr. Bobby Fry.
Bring this up yesterday.
Yeah, so one thing that we're looking at in the ERP, and in case the folks in the audience doesn't know, ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning. It's basically replacing software and document management and making a way to provide for more efficient and effective uses of our resources, as well as accounting for it and reporting on it, and et cetera. So in those discussions, we're looking at segmentation of how we would track things. And one of the ideas that we are thinking about is having a fund that would be kind of a new definition for the board to consider that would represent capital asset replacements. And by doing this, basically we would generate several different areas. So as an example, HVAC might be an area, electrical, vehicle replacement, IT equipment, painting, structural, plumbing. So we would have these generic areas or budget areas within a particular fund so that each and every year the board could consider funding those areas, and any unspent money at the end of the year would remain in those buckets. And then people, say like Bruce, could look at his IT equipment and get on a particular schedule, because we know computers only last a certain amount of time. And after a while, you're going to have to replace a computer, say every 3 years. Vehicles, it might be every 5 years for certain departments. It might only be, I don't know. I'm not an expert on defining all of this, but for the sheriff, it might be only 2 years because they really wear and tear their vehicles more. Or it might be reversed. Maybe EMS would be 3 years and sheriff would be 5. But in any event, we would set parameters so that we're constantly funding each one of these buckets to make sure that we have money there for repair, replacement of particular, quote, capital items on a routine basis. So then the county would get in sync of knowing that each and every year they're going to put $20,000 in this bucket, $50,000 in that bucket, $100,000 in this bucket, and I'm just throwing out numbers, by the way. So it would kind of answer, or I think help answer the question that the gentleman had about always being behind the curve. It wouldn't necessarily fix the problem of not being able to buy something. So if we have a supply chain problem and we needed vehicles, just because the money's there doesn't help, go out and actually find the vehicles. But I don't know. Does that help?
That was very good. That's very good.
So
Thank you.
that's something that we'll think about proposing for FY23 possibly.
Absolutely.
Hoping that Munis and the ERP is going live sometime during 23, we could maybe initiate that type of fund.
Yeah. Thank you, Bobby. All right. Other public comment. Ms. Montgomery. Yes, ma'am, please.
And I've said this before, but thank you to both boards, both the Planning Commission as well as this board, for allowing public comment. and especially this for having it twice. Thanks.
Thank you for coming. Other public comment.
I have one more comment.
All right.
It's a question. Will you
Okay.
be able to claw back that 600 grand we gave the rest?
They dropped off a check with interest yesterday. There you go. There you go. Other public comment. Other public comment. How are we doing on there, Livingston? Pretty quiet. All right, there you go. All right, no more public comment. We do have a closed session this afternoon. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, I move that the board convene in a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711A1 for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, and 2.2-3711A7 for consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. There you go.
Motion.
5 minutes.
Okay.
Second.
What's the matter?
First person is Shanley.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Why don't you people clue us into these things before we get into them? I mean, good Lord, he's got all kind of information.